When Chris and I started thinking about doing this originally, he wanted me to evangelize, essentially, my perspective on why this is a big deal. Last year, after the Style Labs acquisition was announced, I did a user group meeting on why I was so jazzed, for lack of a better term, on the fact that we now, under the, the umbrella of Sitecore, had a DAM, and not just a DAM, but a really good one. And it made such a big difference in what we can do with the product. And so the first question I had here is why do we care? Okay, do we care? And you guys are all here, so I'm thinking that you do care. But does this really make that much of a difference for us? And I think to discuss that, you have to look at what we do for a living. So I'm an architect, so I work for EPAM. If you guys hadn't caught on yet, we're an implementation partner. What does that mean? That means that we implement Sitecore. If I'm working on a project, it's a Sitecore project. We implement it. So what does that really mean? And that means that you're a consultant. If you're an architect, that's fine. You're one little piece of the cog, but we're all consultants. And it means that for a very small amount of time, sometimes a longer amount of time, you end up part of another company. You don't just come in there and architect something, build something, give it to them. You're part of the company for a while. You have to, if you're going to do your job, you have to understand the ins and outs of that company. You have to understand their roadmap. You have to understand their marketing. You have to understand their life cycle of their products and their content and all of that other kind of stuff. You have to understand what their goals are. And if you aren't doing that, you aren't doing your job. But you're never really quite an actual employee. And so I'm going to give you another perspective and the reason why this is such a big deal as far as I'm concerned. For the last 5 years, I've worked in consultancy. Worked for EPAM for the last 5 years. Like I said, that's the story I just gave you. But the previous 10 years, I worked for one of Sitecore's early clients. And that was a small company. We did continuing medical education. If you go, the site's still up. I don't work there anymore, but it's still up and it's still on Sitecore. What's different about that? We had a company max of, I think, about 200 people. It kind of fluctuates. But we had editors, authors, marketing. We had what we call, and I still refer to it as production. If you hear me say production, what I mean is the content entry team. We called it production, so I call it production. Not everybody does. Sometimes I get kind of an odd look when I say that. But those were all not only our internal clients, but that was part of the business. If you're small, I was in the software development piece. I also put content entry in. I'm a certified Sitecore content entry person. I'm not sure they still really do that, but I was at one point. Attended marketing meetings to understand what we were going to market. Graphic arts, we did that in-house. I would make buttons when you used to make buttons for websites instead of doing it with CSS or just grabbing an image or whatever. So that entire internal life cycle of everything we did was something that I understand like as a Sitecore client, as a user of the product, not just as somebody trying to build it for somebody else. And what you see, yeah, okay. Don't want to lose my time here. But what we saw initially in Sitecore was that it was the best CMS that was out there. That's why we chose it. It's still the best. I'll argue that all day long with anyone. And under the core for a CMS, originally, if you go back far enough, what you got out of it was, hey, I don't have to make a code change to change my website. I can get a person to go there and change this title, and then they go through a publish process, and you get, hey, great. That was a big deal. Because before then, just everything was make a code change, do a deployment, all that. So great, we got that. But that wasn't enough. You needed analytics eventually. What you needed to do, sell products. You didn't think about selling products then. And you didn't think about all of the life cycle of everything that your company did. So we had to build integrations. Right? And Sitecore, at that time period, is not going to give you analytics. Of course it does. It has for years. It's not going to give you those kind of things. So you added it, and you added it, and you added it. We never really thought about media. That's always like the late coming thing. Funny story here. When we bought Sitecore, we opted for what was called the media module at that point, which had to add into it. When we went to the training, myself and the guy who was there for our Sitecore training, we were the only company. It was like, raise your hand if you got this or whatnot. We opted the media module. If you get the media module, you didn't have media. You just stored it yourself and you put the string in there because that was the thought process at that time. Media was not important assets were not important. It was about changing a title on a screen or something like that. We were also the only ones that opted for that new store in the database thing, which everybody else was still using the XML thing. Of course, why would you want to do that? So it's come a long way, right? Well, everything else that you got that you used to have to manage yourself or so has been included in the product, except for that external piece, that media piece and whatnot. And so you get that with Style Labs, but you get more. So one of the things that, just to cover the dam, and I know that most people have seen the dam, and like Chris said, you think that Content Hub is the dam. It is the dam. It's a great dam, but it's a lot more than that. And with a dam, you're going to be able to not only manage your stuff across, you're going to be able to keep it so that you're not duplicating assets. If you store everything in the media library, you can't find anything. I've uploaded the same picture over and over again or whatnot. But in addition to that, with Content Hub, you get workflow, right? Well, let's talk about content and workflow. And this is a big thing. When you go to implement for a partner, one of the biggest misconceptions that I think you see is that somebody decides to use Sitecore, and they think that they're going to do all of their content, what I call authoring versus creation. They're going to do all their content authoring, and they're going to do all their content creation in there. So when I say creation, I mean creating the content from scratch, going through that process of, here's a concept. Could be a marketing campaign, could just be a new page, a new section, or whatever you're going to be doing. That's going to go through this entire process. You're going to have editors, you're going to have authors, you're going to have everyone involved in order to make that happen. And companies think that they're going to be able to do that in Sitecore. Sitecore has great workflow, fantastic workflow, but it's designed to do the workflow once you know what that content is. So it's not going to do things for multiple sign-off, for multiple people on the same level. It's not going to do back and forth on a comment about the placement of it. You don't want to do that there. You want to have all of that done long before. Now, in the case of the company that I work for, we built workflow. We built an entire system from scratch, big, giant thing that we could do all of that authoring in and all that back and forth and all of the pieces there before it got in there, right? The thing we built, something we spent all that time in, didn't do half of what you can get out of Content Hub. It's a lot of time. I believe the company still uses it. So you got that. So why, in content creation, why would you want, for instance, one of the other things we'll talk about, which is external people being able to put content into your site, being able to author it? Well, I'll give you two examples. We had, and these are real examples, for the continuing medical education company. We had what we called clinicians, being usually physicians or so, that we paid money to on the side to give us content. They were experts. We wanted expert content in there. They didn't go into Sitecore. You don't want those people in Sitecore. They provided it, and it went through an entire external process, emails, what have you, before it could get there. You don't want that. You want to be able to collaborate directly. In another case, we've had another client where we wanted products reviewed. You wanted expert people, and I'm not talking about liking, like, oh, I gave it a 5-star review. I'm talking about, again, an expert. You want something associated with one of your products. You want the ability to have that kind of planning, that kind of thing done outside of entering it in Sitecore. So we're back to, but you want it so that you could take it and get it into Sitecore without, I send a Word document, I put it in a separate workflow system. You don't want that. Those are very, very powerful things that gets you the ability to do a whole 360-degree process end to end. Now, I'm going to run out of time here. So let me see if there's anything I want to carry before I give it back to Chris. But why is this a game changer in the end? So kind of hit why it's a game changer for a business. I mean, you don't want to have all of those really hard external, integrations that you have to maintain. You want it to be all under the same umbrella if you can. You want to be able to collaborate. You want to be able to manage all of that and get it into your website, maybe into a completely different channel. That's one of the beauties about Content Hub, is that we're talking about it in a Sitecore context here, and it's part of the Sitecore umbrella, but you don't have to use it with Sitecore. It doesn't, as a matter of fact, in the demo, we're going to do something, Sitecore's not even going to be involved in it, mostly because it's scary to do that as part of the demo. But from getting back to being a consultant, The major game changer for us is the fact that you can go to the client when you start. They're going to come to you and say, I have a problem. This is where we want to get to. And what you can do is you can involve everyone. Because in a perfect world, you're going to sit down before you write one piece of code. You're going to have the marketing team. You're going to understand maybe what the financial goals are. What are we trying to do from a metrics standpoint? Where you want all of those people involved in this, not just the people that say, I want a pretty box that rotates on the front. And with this put in place, you can look at the whole thing. You can involve everybody. You can plan all of those things so that what you are giving is a solution that works end to end for somebody, not just a website that eventually you hope you get all those other pieces in. And that's why it's a game changer.